Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Of the E-Commerce Edge podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Roy Lugasi from Stork to the podcast. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
My pleasure, and thank you so much for joining me for the ride today on the pod. Now, before we get into what Stork is and does, all transparency, we've never worked together on a project before, so I can only go by what's on the tin, so to speak, of Stork. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us how you got into this wonderful world of e-com, digital, supply chain, etc.?
Sure. So I came to America about 12 years ago. This is my second startup. In the beginning, I had a dating app called Weeple. So I got the learning experience about being an entrepreneur, raising money, building a business, building an app, having users, and so on. Afterwards, I've been in the, I would say, agency world. I helped a lot of companies building their own e-commerce sites. And through that, got into some customers in the luxury field, specifically in the jewelry. This is where also I met my partner today and also co-CEO of the company, Tamila. Through this type of relationship, she came with a lot of experience in the jewelry industry, and she showed a store on 47th Street with a beautiful merchandise, and only X amount of people can come to the store and actually shops. And she had the idea of taking this jewelry and actually put it on online. And I'm talking about 8-9 years ago. So through that, we met together. And as an entrepreneur, you always have this ambition and you always want to, you cannot take it away from you. So you just want to drive to the next venture. And when she had this type of idea, I put everything behind and we started it together. And obviously that evolved and developed and completely took a huge turn to what Stork is today. But yeah, that's how it started about a few years ago.
I love that. It's almost scratching an itch, so to speak. You see a challenge, you see an opportunity, and you decide that entrepreneurial genetics kicks in, and you decide to build a business out of it. Now, Stork builds itself again. Like I said, don't have any experience working with Stork, but you bill yourselves as the world's premier digital warehouse. Does that mean that you're providing supply chain capabilities to the luxury market, or are you a marketplace for the luxury market, or are you a luxury retailer in your own right, like a first party seller of luxury goods? Like, what role do you play?
Very good question. I like to call it the next generation of trading platform. Instead of trading stocks, we're trading goods. So think about that way. What we do is we connect global supply with digital demand. We give, on one side, to top performing online retailers today access to thousands of products, luxury goods, luxury and premium goods of hundreds of brands. Depends and very related to their specific audience and their specific demand, in which they do not need to hold inventory, everything fully available on dropship. While on the other side, we work with different type of suppliers in different sectors. I mean, the in-season, off-season excess inventory, and also pre-owned, in which we connecting into their system, creating a very curated feed of products. And then based on the demand, we gave them a global distribution to today top online performing platforms all over the world. So they getting a massive exposure while the retailers getting access to those goods with no inventory risk.
So I can almost think of you like a Jor or like a Fair, but instead of it just being a pure wholesale marketplace, it's a wholesale to retail consumer marketplace, to where effectively I'm guessing the e-retailers, they get a product feed from the major luxury suppliers to make sure that they can understand where the inventory is, what their cost is going to be, etc. They list it on their own digital platforms. Then when the sale is made, you're also the middleman in terms of, I guess, the order management piece, where the order then flows back down through your platform to the initial supplier or the brand manufacturer, and then they fulfill direct to consumer in that sense.
In a way, it's correct. The main difference is that Stork acts as the merchants of record.
Ah,
We're not really a marketplace. We're not connecting the supplier with the retailer. We're connecting the supply, which means the inventory, with the proper demand. So we are transforming data, and we are the merchants of record in the middle and making sure that the demand and supply is matching each other, and everything related to that data transformation, everything related to mapping, collecting, we deal with everything in one single platform.
But you're not taking payment, right? Because the retailer that in theory sold the good to the end consumer, they're taking the payment and then they're paying you.
Correct. So the end customer is going to purchase from the online retailer. The online retailer is going to pay us, and then we're going to pay the supplier.
Okay, so it's interesting that you in that model can even be considered the merchant of record because you didn't take the payment from the end consumer of the product.
And therefore, we are a B2B. So I only work with the retailer and I work with the supplier. The end customer is technically purchasing the goods, and my supplier is technically going to drop ship the product to the end customer, but we are still acting in the bridge in between the suppliers to the retailers. We are also handling all the calculations and shippings and duties and taxes on a global level. So as a supplier, when you go and give me your product feed, the only thing you need to do afterwards is starting to fulfill orders. Anything to do with changing in the world of tariff and duties and taxes, anything to do with how do you price the product properly, how do you getting the data properly, all of that we know to do on a very scalable level. And therefore, the only thing he needs to do is to drop ship. And today world, there is so many challenges in order to connect those two dots, right? First of all, connect supply to demand properly. I can have a great supply. I can sit in Europe, have a great store, or I can be in the US and I'm buying clothes out. So I'm a pre-owned reseller from Japan. So one thing is, okay, let me make the business proposal or let me connect with this specific online retailer. The second thing, let me create this type of integration, which is X complexity, right? Then there is the data. Then there is the cross-border shipping. So there's so many things today in the world that really providing or creating a big gap in between that. So you can have billions of dollars of products available in the market, online growing 4 times higher than the entire growth of the industry, but the products are not yet met the demand that exists.
And so the luxury supplier is going to tell you what your wholesale price is effectively for the goods. You then add a markup for effectively being the broker of the goods. You then give that product feed to your e-retailers that you want to work with. You give them a product feed, you give them an inventory feed, and presumably there's a price associated with those goods as well. They then add their margin, their markup to their store, whatever their markup is. Maybe it's 70% gross or whatever it is. They then sell it at that price. How do they know? Because obviously you won't know and they won't know until you know where the customer is buying from and where it needs to be shipped to. You won't know what your shipping cost, for example, is going to be. So do you simply supply them with shipping rules at SKU level that say, okay, for shipping to domestic US, here's the price. Shipping to Europe, here's the price. Do you provide them with effectively a matrix rates table for those goods so that they know, okay, cool, we need to add these to our shipping calculation for these goods so that we don't get caught with our pants down and neither does our suppliers?
So it's almost like it's a very good question, but it's working the other way around. So first and foremost, retailers, the online retailers, right? Whether it's a Farfetch or these different type of online retailers, and they all have their own rules. Some of them, in general, in charge of shipping, meaning they're going to provide a label to us as a business. Some of them are not. So what we're doing on the level of our cost of goods with the supplier, we already including this type of buffer of cost per shipping. Okay. So if it's shipping to the US, doesn't matter where in the US, we know that cost. If from, let's say, Europe to US, if it's Japan to Europe, so we understand all those type of combination, all those type of metrics, in which then add to that the changes in duties and taxes that also apply to different type of price range, below 800, above 800, and so on and so forth. Adding all those type of calculation to our cost of goods, and I give you as a retailer a cost that including all of that. It's your landing cost.
I see. And if those particular retailers ship globally, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, right? So they might you might have a Farfetch that operates in 40 countries around the world, whatever, will ship to 40 countries around the world. That then becomes a little bit more challenging to manage because you can't, or do you just give them a blended shipping cost for global shipping?
Very good question. So usually from our experience, we saw that when customers are globally, they are selling globally. So one of their solution is they do providing that, call it label to ship for us, right? So we can provide them to our suppliers, but there is a cost to it. So this cost now we're going to get instead from us or from our supply network, we're going to get it from the retail. And usually they're going to give you a set cost. And also, most of the time, when you're going to deal with international, a company that sell to all over the world, there is different infrastructures in different countries. So almost I'm going to have one contract in Europe, one contract in Singapore, one contract in US, and I'm going to route the suppliers based on, again, multiple various of what's going to make sense for me to be able to provide.
Makes sense. It allows you to effectively generate the label on their courier account or their courier aggregator account if they're working with an aggregator, and then obviously you generate the label as if the label was being generated in their warehouse, but it's actually being generated in your warehouse. You connect it to the API endpoint of that aggregator or carrier, and it simply gets billed to their account number instead of yours, and it gets billed at the rate that they qualify for with that particular carrier or aggregator. But you charge a small service charge instead of it being shipped on your courier account globally, whether it's DHL or UPS or whatever it is. Instead of it being shipped on your account, shipped on their account, you charge them a service fee for rerouting that request instead of it going to your account, going to their account. And there's like almost like a handling fee involved in doing so.
Yes, exactly. As long as you understand the pricing and you know how to calculate it properly. So it's still not only going to match the supply to demand, but the pricing is going to make sense. Then you're able to provide the product. That's what we define as a sellable product.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that all those rules applies. Otherwise, it's not worth it. And it's almost impossible to do without technology today. And as we involve even an AI into this, into build it smarter and better, being aware to market trends that always exist, that's a key to success today in e-commerce.
No question about it. And luckily, all the carriers and all the carrier aggregators have some pretty robust APIs to be able to connect to. That definitely does make things a little bit easier internationally. And then presumably you provide all the tracking detail back through your APIs to the online retailer so that can update status of orders and can trigger off the transactional emails to the customer and all those sort of workflows that they already have in place for the rest of their sales. They can manage all that themselves and they can manage the customer interaction from there, correct?
That's correct, and vice versa. So what we do, we connecting into the ERP system or POS system of our suppliers as well. We're receiving a product feed and sending back the orders directly to their system through API. So we have one connectivity on one side, and then we have the other connectivity from the retail side. So we fully live inventory in between the two.
And what would stop somebody like a Farfetch? Because obviously there's going to be a little tiny bit of extra margin there for you guys to be able to provide the service that you provide. You're a business, you got to make money, which makes sense. What would stop somebody like a Farfetch or whatever establishing relationships directly with some of these luxury brands and buying directly off them in a dropship scenario, basically being you? But instead of having one additional middleman in between being you, they are the middleman between that luxury brand and the end consumer that they're selling to. What I guess is the value prop? And look, I'm reading between the lines here, but I'm guessing it's the breadth and depth of brands that you have access to that for them to negotiate supply agreements with every single one of those is a big lift for a company that maybe is not IT focused. They're consumer focused and they're marketing focused and they're brand focused. They're not focused on IT heavy lift capabilities.
100%. So I would say it's a value added for both sides. In one side, let's say, first of all, Farfetch is very specific. It's an in-season business, 20% is off-season. And it's a very big difference between the in-season business and the off-season, and we can break it down in continuation of the conversation. But really what's happening is that from the retail side, there is, as you mentioned, a lot of work needs to get done. And the supplier side, I not necessarily, it's not their nature of business. And even though, let's say, they learn how to do a specific integration, one store can give X type of supply. When connecting to us, obviously we're getting vast amount of products. And because of our technology capabilities and business development that we have done, we have the ability to constantly grow this type of inventory by understanding also the challenges that companies, let's say like Farfetch, can have. We're able to do what they can do, and what they can do with few suppliers, we can do, let's say what they can do with few suppliers in 1 year, we can do in 2 months. Okay, so that's a big value, but also let's not forget the other side, right? So there is a supplier side, but in the end of the day, And he have a specific business. He had his own, in that case, in-season business, selling to the store, selling in the store. That's his focus. And for him, let's say he would like to increase omni-channel, then he needs to go create a relationship with this type of channels, create a type of integration. Every single one's a different mapping and data requirement, customer service, payment terms, and so on, right? So when you connect to us, it's one specific integration, and then you connect to vast amount of top performing retailers equal to about 500 million to 1 billion end customers that can see the goods, and you control also where the products are going to be.
I
So,
guess geographically, tier of retailer, size, scale, market
yeah,
penetration. There's all sorts of criteria that they can establish to say, look, okay, we'll sell to this tier of retailer. We won't sell to this other tier of retailer. Or they might say, hey, look, if they're selling these other three brands, we don't want to sell to them because we want to have some element of exclusivity on handbags, say, for example, or jewelry or whatever it might be. They set their own rules, right?
absolutely. And in this industry, those rules are very crucial. Again, there is different between the type of sectors, again, in season, off season, and pre-on, when there is less limitation on more. But you want to make sure that you are in control. As long as you go on the supply chain to the brand, you must ensure you control. You want to know on a SKU level where your product is listed. And what's beautiful about the Stork platform, again, it depends who we're talking about in the supply chain, right? But if it's the brand directly, the brand, when he managed today excess inventory, so he accumulate excess inventory, whether it's coming through his multi-branded boutique stores, from his own stores. By the end of the day, those product needs to move. And he's going to sell it to different type of wholesalers or off-price retailers. But in that type of connectivity, there is a loss of control. One, loss of control. Second, obviously selling on cents on the dollar. But when you lose control, why I'm saying lose control? Because it's still sold to a physical entity, let's say a wholesaler slash jobber, that by the end of the day will sell it to also different type of companies, and there is no ability to know where the product is going to end up. And obviously, it is end up in certain places online, and it doesn't come directly from the brand, right? So how it got there, what type of margins. But when you sell with Stork, not only that you can control where the products are going, you sell directly to the end customer. So you know exactly when it landed, and in case it return, you also get it back. So you have a full transparency of the entire life cycle of the product that you have, and you have better margins. So it's two things that you're receiving. Then you can go to different wholesalers. Wholesalers today, let's say that buy closeouts and they do have that inventory. So brands sold it to them, and now they're trying to move. They see trends on the market. Retailers trying to go towards marketplaces, less own inventory, more drop ship. Those companies are not ready for that. They're not ready for that. You're talking about imagery and about data, about integration. They're not ready. They're not equipped for that. So again, a solution for them that is very different. So each one, it's almost like each one pre-owned resellers from Japan, different language, different ERP system, different mentality. So you need to be able to know how to really understanding their challenges and how to be able to solve it to create this massive distribution platform that we did today. And this is where we spend a lot of time on the tech level, on the aspect level, on the business relationship with them to build the trust in order to be able to do that.
Wow, what it's a heavy lift both sides to a degree, which is where the value add is. It makes absolute sense. I don't know what happened here. I don't know why it cut me off. Can you still hear me?
I,
That was very strange. It looked like it stopped recording. I think what I'll do, I think come back in because it did something strange on the screen that made it look like it was stopping my recording from my side. So I don't want to get through the rest. I'm back. Don't worry, we'll clean all this up in post production. I'm not too worried about that. Not a problem. Heavy lift from both sides, and that's value add. Are the brand manufacturers, do they sometimes hand the rule that says, okay, cool, they can sell this through their own website, their own commerce website. But for example, if they already sell through channels like Amazon and eBay and Walmart Plus and all that, they cannot sell our goods on those other digital channels that they typically sell through. They can only sell through their direct consumer website, and they can only sell at MAP or above, meaning that, hey, here's the minimum advertised price they can sell at or above, but they can't sell below a certain price. Are there certain rules like that where they want to exert some level of control beyond just retailer that they're working with? They want to also be able to define where that retailer can actually sell their goods. And maybe some of those retailers are omni-channel retailers. They've got an online store, plus maybe they've got some physical boutiques, plus maybe they sell through some marketplaces. So what level of control do these premium brands typically want to exert over the retailers that are selling their product?
Great question. So, because we are focused on premium and more luxury, it's different than contemporary, I would say, brands. They very much care about control, and they very much understanding that there is a breaking point in today's control. So necessarily they can have excess inventory, and for them, sometimes they rather not selling if they're not going to get the proper control. But obviously, they have to continue. They have to continue with the flow. So the answers I hear for companies is that they can have a solution that they have better control and higher margin, even though they have the ability to sell to multiple places, they want rather do that. Now, when I'm saying rather do it, they can decide on literally on a level of the style, on a level of the SKU, right? They can decide on a level of a region because there's a little distributor with a specific regional rights. So they can really make those decisions so they feel they're in control. And when the product again sell, they know when it goes to, and then when it returns, it also come back to them. So definitely they can put those rules. If you are not a brand, and let's say you are a different type of supplier, but already been selling on specific markets or specific channels, you can decide, okay, I don't want my products to be there because I'm already selling there. I rather sell my products only here and here. Also not a problem. So we give this full kind of control, but I want to say that we see that when we are acting as a very closed network, very almost like by invitation. So when you do come to us and let's say we do approve you, we give a tremendous amount of value. Imagine that we do most of the work and your product's really going to be visible in front of those audience and you're starting drop shipping and having this flow of orders coming in and the control and so on. So would I say that everybody is really trying to limit you so much? I wouldn't say that. I think today they understand they need an omni channels. They understand the challenge. They don't want to deal with this. If there is a company that can deal with this and can be efficient with this, they rather give it. And also, if in the beginning there is, as they grow, they release it a little bit more. So they feel comfortable with the control that they're receiving. Yeah.
Makes sense. And even if they want to exert control, it also assumes that the retail brand, the retailer, has the technical capability to be able to segment the SKUs down to the channels that they allow those SKUs to be sold through. And not all retailers necessarily have that capability because they might just say, typically, all of our SKUs are available on all channels all the time. And so they might have to modify, they might have to in their ERP, for example, they may have to add some additional product attributes in their ERP or in their omni-channel listing platform. They may have to have some additional flags or attributes in there that says, okay, cool, that's great. Let's not send that product off to Amazon because we can't for that particular SKU. So I'm guessing sometimes there may be a problem with onboarding some of these retailers until they have the technical capability and chops to meet the rules of the brand supplier.
See, it's almost imagine in our side, in Stork side, we have the capability to send you what you need to see. You don't connect with the supplier, right? So you can see multiple products, multiple brand. Some can come directly from the brand, some to come from different type of channel, different type of vector. And that's what you get from me. You don't get all the inventory and then you decide. You get everything for me directly. And then depends on the channel. Sometimes they have their own events that they curated for, and everything is listed. But the channels that we are working on are also on the demand side are very specific. They're not the eBay of the world. They are very specific. They're very premium, luxury type of online commerce. So it's managed a little bit almost like a first place marketplace rather than third place marketplace.
So when you guys first started thinking about this business model, did you, I've never heard of this exact model before. I don't know if it happens in verticals. I don't know if this happens in other categories. I'm aware of a lot of cross-border platforms, the PayPal's platform, et cetera, that do cross-border shipping, and they become effectively the merchant of record for those orders. They take payments, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots of sort of cross-border merchant of record stuff that happens, even in the logistics and supply chain space. That happens, especially with tariffs, et cetera. So there's a lot that happens in this world that maybe I'm not totally up to speed with, but it feels like this is a relatively unique business model, and especially in the luxury world, it feels like quite a unique business model because you're not just a pure wholesale B2B marketplace, you're almost like a B2B2C marketplace, and that's a model that you run. And when you first started going to some of these luxury brands and approaching them and saying, "This is the idea we have. We think this is the value we bring to the table." What was the reception like? Did it take a couple of these initial brand dominoes to fall, and then it was like, "Oh, we already work with XYZ. Cool. Why don't you work with us?" Was the first 1, 2, 3 brands hard to onboard, and then it did just get easier and easier from there?
It's actually worked exactly the other way around. So what we did in the beginning, we started in the jewelry industry. And in jewelry, white label jewelry, you manufacture product based on demand. So there's no problem with inventory. So we came to one of our channels, online retailers that started working with us. But in the beginning, we started as a B2B platform, not B2B2C, but literally, I'm a supplier. I want to work with my own retailers, very similar to a lot of the concept exists today in the market. And to the jewelry industry, we quickly shifted after about a year to the B2B2C model when taking jewelry to online. So one of the customers we had said, okay, we like the concept, let's give it a try. And really about 2 to 3 weeks, they sold over $100,000 of about 200 styles. And it started from that. So we grew the jewelry business. And in jewelry, as I mentioned, it's great, manufacture based on demand. We create a beautiful catalog, beautiful imagery, beautiful data, great integration, everything is flawless. And then they came to us and they say, we also have a demand for those type of brands. Do you have them? Obviously, we didn't know about that. We didn't know about those brand walls, the challenges, and something led to another. We were able to find one supplier, figure out what type of inventory you have, understand, okay, everything is authentic, understand how you authentic the goods, everything from A to Z. We got this offering and we gave it to this channel. After we gave it to them, then we saw bigger increase in sales because a branded goods more recognized obviously is going to create more sales, and that is it's kind to grow. So we did not start with brand directly. We're starting with different type of wholesalers that buy closeouts, access inventory to off-price retailers, and that's how we grew. And then we got more demand, more supply. Then we understand, okay, not necessarily every supply I take and I bring to the same retailer is going to convert. So maybe there is another retailer, and then we grow the retailer side and in also different countries, and that's its grew. At a certain level, we understood that by the end of the day, take the entire supply chain life cycle, it's all started with the brand and it's also ended with the brand, right? So he said, okay, we need to come directly to them and starting discovery with them and approaching them in a way that they're going to give us a test. And in brand, it's very different because the brand, there's specifically premium luxury, obviously there is hierarchy of people that work there. The salesperson have a specific goal. The fulfillment and operation have a specific goal. The C-level have a different type of mindset. So you need to know who you approach. So obviously, in the beginning, it didn't work. We spoke with companies. It was great. Let's talk. We like it. Let's talk in few months and so on. And it took time. As we grew, as we showed more data, as we were more stronger in our approach, this is when we started getting companies involved. And I can mention names, but we got a very big partnership with one of the largest companies that own distribution for over 100 brands to join us. And through that, we also learned a lot. And basically through experience, we were able to come and pitch it by really understanding their challenges and position that maybe we are not solving all your challenges today, but there's few things we do very well and we can give you that. And this is already better than what you're currently doing because of XYZ as well. And you know what, in the beginning, it was very hard and slowly it's getting better and easier. And in today generation, listen, in general, a lot of luxury brands, premium brands, they're afraid of go online, specifically when it comes to off-price, and they don't want to have their name there. It's clear why. And we try, but the world is going there. The millennials looking for affordable goods. They shopping more online, they shopping more on marketplaces. So it have to be something that's going to connect it. So either you are the trustable source that can actually handle that. If you do, show me how I'm doing it, and let's build a trust together. So with brands, it's a trust type of relationship. You go slowly, starting with specific product, specific channels, specific customer, and so on, and you build those use cases accordingly.
And I guess also, as part of the pitch, it makes sense that you would say something along the lines of, "We could continue to source your goods from wholesalers or brokers, or we could get supply from other channels, but we would rather work directly with you, and we would rather you give us the rules of the road of where you want this product to end up and the rules around that and total supply chain visibility, honesty, transparency, the whole 9 yards. It feels like that is a better pitch than saying, okay, we're going to sell through some wholesalers, broker dealers, etc. And we have no idea where this is going to end up. And we also have, within reason, no idea what price some of these goods are going to be sold at either. And so we're going to have two forms of brand devaluation. We're going to have channel devaluation. It's going to end up in places we don't want it to be, alongside other goods we don't want it to be sold alongside of. And two, we're not sure exactly what price it's ultimately going to be liquidated at. Feels like they almost have a gun to their head in some respects, because you could go out there and you could source supply, right, through illicit or unapproved or whatever channels that they don't have control over at all, or they can work directly with you and exert a lot more control over where it's sold, what price it's sold at, etc. So it feels like almost to a degree a no-brainer to work with a partner like you guys versus a wholesaler, a broker dealer, something like that, where they have a lot less control.
1,000,000%, and I'll tell you even more than that. By the end of the day, it's a cycle, right? So let's say they have it and they did sell it to company X. That company X will come to us by the end of the day. So it's come to us regardless, right? It's whether, and I believe that the demand is the demand. By the end of the day, end customer have a specific demand. The retailers acquire this specific customer, and they have the demand. They control it. That's why we see some brands collaborate with or others. Like by the end of the day, they collaborate not necessarily to matching their brand identity, but because the audience is there. And I believe if we create a great relationship with our retailers, because we're providing this content access to supply, they don't need to buy it. It's in your unlimited inventory and so on, based on their demand and very like intelligent way of sourcing on the e-commerce way, then you need to collaborate. It's either you collaborate or you don't collaborate, then they come to us regardless. So obviously not in a rude way, but in a nice way. We want them with us. We want to do it together. And that's why we approach them. And even with the depth of suppliers we have, we always put in place the control and we understand how it needs to act. And we really trying to make sure we're very selective with who we work with. We are very selective, both supply, both demand. We're not at open market. We're not trying to devalue luxury or premium. The opposite, like really make it very selective and attach supply to demand the proper way and still keeping the proper rules aligned.
And you've been doing this now for over 3.5 years. Was this, once you officialized Stork as its own platform, as its own delivery model, as its own tech platform, etc., was that the business model you started with, or did you pivot at all at any point along the way? Did you pivot to adjust and tweak the business model, or was it just, no, now we know the business model, we know it works, we know we can aggregate the demand, we can aggregate the supply, we can make sure we're the middleman, that there's the plumbing that makes all this work seamlessly across the board, and now all we need to do is scale both supply and demand in tandem to grow our business? So was that the realization pretty early on, that, hey, we can't let demand get too far out ahead of supply, and vice versa, because if we have too much supply, then they won't see us as a valuable channel to actually sell product through, and vice versa. If there's too much demand and they cannot get enough product as a retailer to get into their channel to meet their customer demand, then obviously that's not a great relationship either. So it feels like you are caught in the middle. You're like piggy in the middle, just like all marketplaces are, where you try to grow supply and demand in as close to parallel as you possibly can.
Absolutely. So I would say first we did a pivot in the beginning. As I mentioned, we've been a B2B platform that really you can see the buyer, you can see the seller, they can communicate with each other, they can see the catalog, very different. And then we pivot into this transaction of B2C, which have a lot of challenges in order to make it happen. A lot of challenges from payment into processing, into fulfillment and logistic and everything you mentioned. And that what we've been working on to make it scale. Today we understand, yes, it's a combination of supply and demand 100%, not necessarily on the demand side. Demand, very big, continue to grow. We have unlimited requests, no problem. When it comes to supply, that's what you need to ensure you always have. And I would say the right supply, right? And then to do this proper matching. Sometimes you can have a supplier, but what if he's shipping on time, or what if it's not, that the commercial terms is not okay. So there's multiple aspects that you must have all of them aligned to be able to really make it proper. So today we have a lot of demand, we have supply, but we need to make sure the supply is always constant for a long time. So we're really only working with I would say, pretty large companies on both sides, enterprise level, I would say. You need to have a certain amount of supply that you're committed to have. You need to have certain amount of user base that you have. It's mostly between 1 million to 250 million today. So it's like top online retailers as foundation. After that, we're going to grow and expand more to online retailers, personal shoppers, and so on. But now this is our main focus.
I love that, and it sounds like you're almost like probably the top 10% of retailers in terms of scale, for sure. Taking Amazon out of the equation as a retailer, as a first-party retailer, everyone else outside of that, that you must be operating in kind of that top 10 to maybe 15% echelon of retailers, because not that many retailers that are doing 250 million plus a year in revs. So that puts you right up near the top. But secondarily, how many luxury brand suppliers? Because I don't play in this space. I never buy products from this space. Even my wife doesn't really buy like super luxury high end goods. How many luxury suppliers are even out there in the world? I know like I know obviously the Birkin bag, I know Louis Vuitton, I know some of the mainstream luxury brands when I was in the design district in Miami, like all those main brands, I recognize all those brands. But I'm guessing there are hundreds of luxury brands that I wouldn't have found in Miami's design district that would fit your criteria for taking on as a brand supplier.
100%. So first of all, there is 100 brands. Of course, there is the leading global brands, and then there is the regional brands that they have their own they recognize in a specific country, specific region, and so on. The list is very big, but the brand itself then have this distribution. You have his own stores. Then he's have multi-branded boutique stores. It's basically about, I think, only 2,500 of them exist in the European area. Then there is the wholesalers who buy directly the clothes. Also, there is thousands of them. There is a lot of outlets by someone. Then there is a major Japanese, a major resale, call it like a pre-owned resellers. But I'm talking about big auction house. They buy $40 million worth of goods on a weekly basis. So those exist. Those are there is few as a supplier like that exists. Then there is the distribution in every region that they have the access to manufacture, and then they have their own regional store. So really, there is a lot. There is a lot exists in the market. Hundreds of brands, thousands of stores, and from that you just need to pick. So it's there. And what interesting is that you not necessarily to be limited to the location of it. So a lot of our supply today is actually coming from Europe, even though we, let's say, sell to the US. Our big partnership I mentioned is in Japan. Okay,
Wow.
so you need to know how to work with this properly, again, within the proper rules, and you have the ability to create something very interesting. And also that right now, with many rules that coming when it relates to, let's say, the tariff and the duties and taxes, even though it's still new and nobody knows what's going to happen, but it's shaking the market. If I am a buyer in US and I want to buy product, I'm stopping myself right now. It's not worth it. It's already 10% more. What's going to happen in 30 days? I'm going to do that. Same thing with the suppliers that are here used to buy in order to sell for the retailers. They also stock the brands in Europe, just having more excess inventory. So how do you deal with this? And you're going to see that, let's say, when it comes to drop shipping, there is some rules that still exist that help you build up that business. Like, for example, the minimum of below $800. Very big help when it comes to e-commerce, right? Maybe they don't need to bring the goods directly to here, or maybe they only need to. So there is many interesting
Workarounds. The market always finds a way, basically.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's always good. No, this is super exciting. Like, this is such a novel business idea. I've seen other B2B to C business models before, but this is certainly a novel one. And because I so heavily focus on B2B in my world today, and it's usually B2B, it's not usually B2B2C. It's such an interesting, because these are still consumer products, even though it is a B2B2C play. These are still consumer goods. These are still fashion items, accessories, etc. Jewelry, as you say, etc. These are still retail type goods. This is not a steel beam to support a building, right? So the reality is these are still retail goods, but it's almost like you're greasing the wheels of global trade by connecting the producer of the good and the ultimate consumer of that good.
Love it. Exactly. You made it very good. I think there's no limitation. I almost like this. You transforming data, right? By the end of the day, whether it's a handbag or a T-shirt or a shoe, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you have the right data and the right connectivity, and then there's the right demand on site. So you're transforming data that can be for fashion, from accessories to handbags to furniture to anything in a way. So we start in the very core in an industry that's very hard to access, in an industry that have a specific rules, in an industry that you can really build a proper community around. And from that, we see ourselves expanding to more and more.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes. I'll also drop a link to your website in the show notes, your Stork website. Other than that, if there's brands listening to this that haven't heard of you before and they're operating in that luxury market and they feel like they want to reach out, or conversely, if there's luxury retailers out there that haven't worked with you before and they want to, what's the best way to get a hold of you and have that conversation?
Great questions. I think the fact that you mentioned the LinkedIn, it's a good way to reach out. Also on our platform today, on our website, there is ability to submit a form both on the retail side, both on the supply side. And then we of course have the team that going over, review it, contact directly with the whether it's supplier or the buyer. And then within the approval system, if they get approved, then we're then of course getting into the onboarding stage. So I think that if there is any companies, that are listening that either supply or demand partners that can see that as a potential, can definitely put the inquiries on the website, and our team will be here to answer the question, see the application, obviously get on a call.
And I'm guessing that it does depend a little bit on how tech savvy each side is. Although having said that, when you're talking 200, maybe $250 million retailer, usually they got some pretty serious IT chops in the business. And so I'm guessing that onboarding a retailer into your platform, I'm guessing what, 90 days, something like that. You can have them up and running typically, maybe even less. And then also from the brand side, would it be similar?
Absolutely. So supply side, whether it's a brand or a retailer or an off-price retailer, it depends on the supply that we're talking about. Matter of 2 to 3 weeks, we can have it
Wow.
running. When it comes to the online retailers, since it's big companies, we have a direct API. We know how to connect to them relatively very quick. When it comes to challenging with supply, it's work we're doing on the data. It's work we're doing on the mapping. It's not necessarily the integration. We build it in a very, very seamless type of integration that make us and have us the ability to scale in both inventory feed and orders sending back.
Yeah, I almost think of you as a value-added iPaaS platform, really. It's almost like a proprietary iPaaS platform. You're doing a lot of data transformation, you're doing a lot of ETL work, but you're also adding some business services and some introductory services on top of that. Yeah, very interesting concept. It's very impressive. What's on your radar if we were to look out over the next 6, 12, 18 months? What's on your radar? What's a priority for you guys? Do you want to add more categories? Do you want to add more brands? What's the most important things you guys are trying to achieve over the next 6, 12, 18 months?
First of all, I'm going to mention something you said before. We are going to present in the NRF in September in Paris. Yeah, like
Great.
7 companies are going to present there. We are also going to be there. Really, right now, we are in preparation for scaling the business. We now also finalizing our round A of investment, and we are preparing the entire company to scale. So this is working a lot on the internal process that we have, while continue to onboard anchors, supplier, brands direct, to be able to really fulfill this entire demand that we have. So for the next 6 to 12 months is a period of us taking Stork from that hub that really be very careful about how we're dealing with things to make sure the operation is good, to scalable. We're going to scale it. We are opening more offices in different countries right now, and we're preparing the entire operation to scale globally.
And is it your vision ultimately? Do you want to go public? Do you want to sell to a much larger entity? Do you want to just own this thing forever? What's your vision from the exit perspective? What's your vision for the business?
Would love to IPO it.
Love it. Wow. That's a pretty awesome ambition. I absolutely love that. Very well done. I think you have a really good chance to get there. Luxury seems to be one of those places in the economy that is almost unassailable. It just seems like luxury demand, whether the economy's up, whether it's down, whether it's a recession, whether it's not, it seems like those that top 1, 2, 3% of society that can afford luxury goods, it feels like they are largely unscathed by almost anything that happens to the global economy. So yeah, it feels like this is a very resilient vertical industry category that you've gone into here. And look, I like your chances of being able to get there one day soon. So congratulations on getting Stork to where it is today. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like. It can be personal or professional. Mr. Roy Lugasi from Stork, what is your question for me today?
Oh, good. I wasn't prepared for that. If you were a supplier, would you join Stork?
To me, it feels like a no-brainer, right? I don't work in this hyper luxury space where brand is everything and brand value is everything. It just feels like luxury as an outsider looking in. And again, I don't work in this space, but it feels as an outsider looking in that there's a lot of artificial scarcity built into the model. These experts, like the LVMHs of the world, etc., they are just absolute experts at branding. They're absolute experts at go-to-market. They're absolute experts at product development. It just feels like when it comes to buyer psychology, they get it. And clearly they do because they've managed to take something that maybe from a raw materials perspective of a bag, it might only be $50 worth of raw materials, and then they can sell it for thousands of dollars. They've clearly been able to build FOMO around their product, much Porsche. You want to go buy a brand new 911, get in line, right? Porsche's done a great job doing that. And you've got to buy some of their lesser models first, usually through your local dealer, build up a relationship. Maybe you'll get an allocation, maybe you won't. And definitely, if you want to buy a GT2 or GT3 RS, forget it. It's never going to happen. There's certain brands that have managed, Apple to a lesser degree, has been able to build a certain amount of FOMO around their product and been able to charge a premium price for what is a very average product in many respects. So clearly, these brands know what they're doing, both in terms of product design, NPD, go to market, brand building, brand story, distribution channels, pricing. Like they just seem to have ticked so many boxes to be able to get to where they are that it feels like it would be a no-brainer to work with someone, a partner like Stork, that really understands both the seller psychology and needs and the buyer psychology and needs. And that feels like a match made in heaven is what is the term I would use.
Love it. Great answer, Jason.
Listen, fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time and I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you. Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.